Hi, I'm Mr. Levier. I'm here at the Ingenium building and I'm going to learn about the history of bicycles. This is going to be an awesome visit.
Hi, my name is Emily Gann, and I'm the curator responsible for the transportation collection at Ingenium. Today's video is all about the history of bikes, how they were designed, their different materials, and who used them. We have about 160 bicycles in our collection. They range from the 1880s until, I would say, the early 2000s. Most of them are from CCM. So CCM was a large manufacturer of bicycles in Canada, and our collection really represents that maker. Here we're standing next to an early bicycle. So these types of bikes were commonly referred to as velocipedes, also referred to as bone shakers, or hobby horses, and essentially they look like a bike that we would see today, but normally they don't have pedals. And so this is a unique bicycle because it did have pedals, which again are used to propel the front wheel forward, but there are no gears. So the back wheel is really just a running stability wheel. What's interesting about these types of bikes is the inclusion of a kind of shock absorption. So you see the little seat here, which wouldn't have provided too much comfort, but the bar that it's on would have worked as a bit of a shock absorber for the rider, which was really important because roads at this time weren't in great shape. The bicycle themselves was made of a heavy metal or could have been made of a wood, so it didn't really have a lot of shock absorption either. And then the wheels were often a hard rubber, so again, not a lot of give. So any kind of comfort that could have been provided to the rider would have come through shock absorbers like this piece of metal. I'm standing next to a bicycle that's called a penny farthing or a high wheeler. So this is a bike, although it looks very different from the type of bikes we see today, which are called safety cycles. This bicycle has one very large wheel, which you would sit essentially on top of. There were no gears, so the pedaling would really just be to spin this one large wheel, and the smaller wheel at the back was for stability. The bicycle had to be moving in order for you to get on. So this small piece right here was used to sort of propel yourself up and onto the bike. Bikes like these were used for racing and recreation, and they were quite expensive, so it was not as popular a technology as the safety bicycle is today. We have a few examples of tandem bicycles in the collection. This one's particularly interesting because of the two different shapes for the two different riders. So here at the back, we have a straight bar, which is quite common in safety bicycles and racing bicycles. Those bikes initially were designed for able-bodied men. In the front, we have a drop bar, which can also be referred to as a J bar. And this was introduced to appeal to female cyclists who in the 1880s, 1890s, early 20th century were interested in cycling, but it was common for them to take a bike ride and be wearing a long skirt or a dress. And so this made it a lot easier for them to step through and mount the bicycle as opposed to throwing a leg over with all of that fabric and potentially getting caught up in the frame itself. So here in this bike designed for two, we can see that the intended user of the front of the bike was a woman, and at the back it would have been designed and expected that a man would be pedaling in the rear. Tricycles were very popular, particularly with women. The same idea of, like, you know, you're able to pedal underneath you as opposed to really having to exert yourself getting on a bike. So they're kind of curiosities in a way, as they never really became too popular. Here's an example of a safety bicycle, which is a very common type of bicycle that we see today. So the safety bicycle witnessed the adoption of the diamond frame, or the triangle frame, which you can see here, and you might be able to see really well on the blue bicycle in the back. So it's really 3 points of contact. So you have the wheel and the handles in the front, the seat, and then the gears. And so this brings a good amount of weight distribution for the body, as opposed to sitting on top of the wheel. Your weight is now a bit dispersed. You also have the adoption of pedals and of gears. And so what this allows for is that you are pedaling and the energy is being used in the rear wheel, as opposed to just pedaling one single wheel. So you can control how much tension and how much weight you're pushing forward. And so this is a design that has really stabilized in the bicycle industry. And so because the bicycle design hasn't changed too much in terms of how a bike looks, what we've witnessed is changes in material. So from early bikes that are made of wood to carbon fiber bikes that we see today, there are different designs in terms of wheels, so more of a pneumatic tire, and then also the changes in braking and gear changes. So the bike looks the same. Someone from the 1900s would be able to get on a bike today and ride it relatively easily, but there are a lot more bells and whistles now, a lot of evolution in terms of the design of the materials that make up the bike and the thinking that goes into that design.
Whoa, this is awesome. I feel like I've gone back in time. Oh.
Hi, my name is Nick Pecca. I'm a guide here at the Science and Tech Museum in Ottawa, and we've just been riding around on a tricycle. This one is a reproduction from the late 1880s, early 1890s. Tricycles came in to be a safe alternative to the penny farthing, which had the big wheel and the small wheel. Those were really for reckless young men. This was for everyone else. We've got block pedals to catch your high heels, because these were meant for women as well. But they're a lot more expensive than a penny farthing because they have twice as many wheels.
Interesting.
Or 1/3 as many. And they were much, much safer. But earlier ones did not have these handlebars.
Okay.
Instead, they might have the third wheel in the back. And you'd steer with two funny handles like this, or with levers, or a crank. All kinds of different ways of steering were thought of before this was really landed on as the one that everyone used.
Now, was this actually, this kind of bicycle manufactured in Canada, or was it from somewhere else?
That is a great question. We had a lot of bike manufacturing in Canada. This particular one was made by our reproduction maker in California. I don't know personally if bikes exactly like this would have been made in Canada, but certainly at that time bike manufacturing was a thing, and most bike manufacturers actually shuttered in 1898. So I can assume that there were tricycles being made in Canada. Whether they were exactly like this, I don't know.
Okay.
One thing that we did add, as Canadians and especially in Ottawa, was the replacement of oil lamps, which this would have been.
Okay.
So you'd put kerosene in here and light a wick, this is an LED, and you'd burn oil. Now that's expensive. What was invented as a replacement was gas lamps. And a lot of bikes, you can see old bikes like CCM, was a very, very big brand. They actually came about after all those bike manufacturers shut down. They had calcium carbide gas lamps. And the way to make calcium carbide cheaply was invented in Chelsea, in the Gatineau Park. And to do that, you would put a rock, calcium carbide, into water, it makes acetylene, and that's what you're lighting on fire. So you don't need to carry around a flammable liquid, you just make the flames in the lamp. So a lot of cars and bikes used calcium carbide gas lamps before LEDs and electricity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then try turning it 90 degrees the other way. Now try pedaling forward.
Oh my god.
You go that way. But if you're off by like 2 degrees, you don't go anywhere.
Whoa!
You're powering the wheel on the left.
Oh, okay.
To be able to turn, one wheel needs to not move. You can't not move the one you're pushing.
That's right. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Hold the bike in place while you climb on. Alrighty.
Oh, alright.
And now we got a co-operator. These were invented slightly after the tricycle. A sociable doesn't have to have four wheels like this one. It's just anything where you're sitting beside each other instead of front and back.
Okay.
And it means kind of a very nice conversation.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Back in the day, we had many different coins. This is the penny, that is the farthing. The farthing is the small coin and the penny is the big one.
Ah, of course. Yes. Wow. Alright.
And so now you can go off
Whoa.
there. And if you want to slow down, you need to slow down your pedaling. You don't have brakes.
That's it.
So
No
this
brakes.
was a very reckless bike meant for young men to prove their manliness, compete against their friends. It was, by design, dangerous. And then you just hope there aren't any trees or horses in your way.
Yeah.
Steering is a bit of a nightmare. Balance is a bit of a nightmare.
Can you imagine?
If you need to get off in an emergency, good luck. But it's okay, you're immortal.
Yeah, of course.
You're a young man, you're in your 20s.
Yes. Oh! That's awesome.
Yeah. And then similarly to dismount is even trickier. You hope there's a fence nearby.
Yeah, I guess so. There we go. All right. This is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Pleasure. I love talking about bikes.